So the most important thing that I want every single person to take away from this podcast today is there is no failure that you can win from if you have an excuse from. You can't go up from there. And that's where we all need to examine our own lives. And I would hope and I would pray for every single person. I would love for you to get to chapter 5, which is you just choose a different path. And it's very scary. And I'm going to tell you something that I believe in my heart of hearts, and I've seen it to be true with millions of people. But they say that people prefer known hells to strange heavens. Think about that. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Rebuild and Rise. Okay, so I want to talk about something deeply personal. I want to talk about situations that I recently went through, have gone through, and have climbed out of the hole. And I actually want to start off with a story. And so John Maxwell constantly references the autobiography in 5 Short Chapters by Portia Nelson. And it teaches exactly what it is that I'm about to describe that I just went through. Okay, so chapter 1. You walk down a street, you fall into a deep hole, and you feel completely lost and helpless. It takes forever to climb out, and you insist it isn't your fault. Chapter 2. You walk down the same street, you pretend you don't see the hole, and you fall in again. You can't believe you're back in the same place, but you still say it isn't your fault. And again, it takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3, same street. This time you see the hole clearly. You fall in anyway. It becomes a habit. But now your eyes are open. You know where you are. You own that it's your fault. And you climb out immediately. Chapter 4, same street. You see the hole and you walk around it. Chapter 5 is you walk down another street. What I wanted to talk to you today is I want to talk to you about something that John Maxwell has been talking about a lot, and he just finished writing a book, which is Getting a Return on Failure. And he talks about failure, how you can't get a return on failure if you make an excuse for it. So a lot of people live in chapter 1 and chapter 2 of this book. And one of the things that he focuses on is that if you don't ever take responsibility for your failure, the excuses that you come up with, your best excuse is your worst excuse, is what he says. And he says why it's your worst excuse is because you believe it. And because you believe it, you never actually become the person that you're supposed to be. And you've now talked yourself into why you're not becoming them. And so I want to talk to you about an experience that I recently just had. And I cannot believe that I am talking about this again because I thought I had gotten to level 5. I thought that I had chosen a new path. But it turns out I was still in chapter 3, where I actually made the same mistake yet again. And where this comes from is it comes from a scarcity mindset. And I want to talk to you about sticking to your gut and doing what you know is right, no matter what. So last year was very difficult for me. If you've heard any of my podcasts, you'll know last year I felt like it was a breaking point almost for me. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to continue on at this pace, at this level of output. It was such an immense level of output. I was exhausted and I just did not know how I was going to continue. Well, a lot of the situations that I was in were because of choices that I had made or hadn't made. So I brought on the wrong hires. I brought people on that I knew were no good for my business, that I knew were not going to propel me forward. But these hires felt safe. They filled a void. They were what I would call scarcity hires. And I spoke to a really good friend of mine, Kendra Cook. And if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, you've probably done this once or twice or 10 times or more, where you have a desperation hire and you hire someone because you feel the need to fill that seat so badly because of whatever reason you gave yourself. And for me, it was a scarcity mindset. I was so afraid to not have a particular seat filled that for me, I took some very bad advice where someone had said, well, just put a body in the seat, body and seats, but that erodes your culture. And a little piece of me died along with having a body and a seat. I am not a body and a seat kind of company. That would be like me having a body in the seat of my husband. That doesn't work. There's no way that you can stick with something long term if you have the wrong people in the wrong seats. And a couple of podcasts ago, I had a good friend of mine, John Tallinger, on the podcast, who's been with the same company for 17 years, went from the first employee in the company to now, right, he's the CGO. And he's an executive within the organization. And one of the things I asked him is like, tell me about, how do you stick with something a long time? And he's like, well, first of all, you have to know if it's a good fit or if it's a bad fit. You can't stick with something that you know is a bad fit. And I think that was a very profound thing to say, because a lot of people think just gritting your teeth and pushing through it is a way to go. Well, no, it's not. Not if it's a square peg, round hole. It is doing you a disservice to keep somebody around that doesn't belong, and vice versa. We're robbing them of an opportunity, and vice versa. They're robbing us of an opportunity to find someone who would be really great and who would excel in this role and in this culture. And so to bring you to what happened this year. So last year it was just a lot. And so I went on a hiring freeze for a few months and said, okay, I'm not bringing on any more people for a while. I did some soul searching. And last year we had come up with a blueprint for who fits within our culture and all of the boxes that they have to check. They have to align with 7 values that we hold within our organization. They have to have unimpeachable character. And it's something where I know if someone is a good fit, literally in the first interview and in the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth. I know deep down. And so my first hire that I made coming out of this rough season where I thought I had done the work and I said, okay, never again, never again, never again. I thought that I was taking a different path. But in actuality, I was still stuck in chapter number 3, which you all heard. And so I hired an individual and she was a superstar, but I knew she was going to be a superstar. I absolutely knew it. From the moment she picked up the phone, I knew this person was going to be a great fit. And it was tonality. It was the way that she spoke. It was her follow-up after our phone call. It was her responsiveness as we started to continue to go through the process. But the moment I spoke with this young woman, I was like, this person's going to fit very well within our culture. And so to this day, she's still here. She's rocking and rolling. And so fast forward a couple of months, I had this thought in my head. I started to get in this scarcity mindset where I was like, oh my gosh, like I was so focused on building a bench this year because I wanted to ensure that I didn't go through what I went through. I'm about to come up on year 5 of being in business. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't go through what I went through in year 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 in year 5. And this was all predicated from something that Layla Hermosi had said. So I have this in the back of my mind while I'm going through all these different things, and I hear it, but yet I don't do anything about it. But the big thing that I'm focused on is building a bench. But that's not going to prevent me from going through what I went through year 1 through 4 and year 5. And so again, I got into this scarcity mindset. I'm like, oh, well, what if this person takes a day off? What if this person takes a day off? What if this person takes a day off? Who am I going to have in the seat? And all of a sudden, instead of being in this flow state where things are working extremely and abundantly well, instead of moving with clarity and precision, I again moved with a scarcity mindset. And so there were people who presented themselves to me within my organization, within my company, that I normally would have never given even a second look to. And again, it comes down to all of the values that we have within our organization. And so I made a move to hire these people completely and totally unsettled, knowing full and well that this person and these people were not going to mesh with my culture. But because I was so focused on building my bench, I glossed over all of the red flags that I saw in interview 1, 2, 3, and 4. And because of that, I suffered immensely. And I'm going to tell you something that is unique about me. I take responsibility for my failure. I love that John Maxwell always says, he's like, in business, either you win or you learn. And I was trying to convince everybody else around me that these people were a good fit. I was trying to convince myself that they were a good fit, but I knew they weren't a good fit. And push comes to shove. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details of it, but bad experience after bad experience after bad experience after bad experience after bad experience with these people in my company, we decided it was best to just part ways, because there was, at this point, we had reached an impasse. There was no reckoning anything. We were not a good fit. And I was viciously and brutally verbally attacked in a way I've actually never been attacked in my life. And so for me, this was not a moment of woe is me at all. This was a moment of, okay, I'm done doing it my way. God, it's time for me to do it your way. And it had my nervous system amok. But the beautiful thing about life and how it works and how it moves and how it operates for me anyway, because I believe truly that Romans 8:28 says, for all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose. The amount of resources that I have in my circle and the people that I have in my corner, the God that I have in my corner, I knew everything was going to be okay. And did I suffer? Absolutely. Was it frustrating? Was it stressful? Absolutely. But did it get dealt with? Absolutely. And is something good coming out of it? Absolutely. So here's what happens. So let's move past, right, the bad hires, right? We parted ways. And now we move to what I would definitely call my come to Jesus moment. And so I went to my pastor, his wife Susie, and I went to her after church and I was like, we need to pray. And we prayed, and we prayed for wisdom. We prayed for builders. We prayed for an eye-opening experience. And within less than 24 hours, and I will tell you, I got on my knees and I prayed. I prayed fervently. I prayed for wisdom. I prayed for me to bring people into this business that would allow us to continue to fulfill our mission in the way that it's supposed to be fulfilled. People that had the same laurels, morals, values that we did. And I had this eye-opening epiphany. And this might sound silly to you, especially if you are a much more experienced business owner. Mind you, I'm coming up on year 5. And so I finally had my epiphany, which was, you need to hire a sales manager. And so this is me going to level 5, chapter 5, right? And this is me choosing a new path. Because what Layla Hermosi had said earlier, if you don't hire people to handle certain tasks, if you don't delegate these tasks out to someone, again, you're going to experience in year 5 what you experience in year 1. And it finally made sense to me. I was like, oh, I shouldn't have even been interacting with these people. This should have been a sales manager from the get-go. Because here I am, right? I'm at events and I'm building and I'm working these insanely long hours, insanely long days. And here I am with the sales manager hat on, where I had no place having a sales manager hat on. I needed to have somebody in that seat. And it finally dawned on me, right? So I just kept walking down the same path. I kept hiring executives, kept hiring account executives, thinking I'm the sales manager. And I was like, I'm going to promote from within, but that's not the direction that we needed to go. We needed to bring in someone who could fill that role and who could fill that seat. And so essentially what this allowed me to do is this allowed me to create a position for someone who had all the characteristics that we're looking for. And so I want you to know, so the most important thing that I want every single person to take away from this podcast today is there is no failure that you can win from if you have an excuse from. You can't go up from there. But you can go from failure to winning if you're willing to accept responsibility. And that's where we all need to examine our own lives. And I would hope and I would pray for every single person. I would love for you to get to chapter 5, which is you just choose a different path. And it's very scary. And I'm going to tell you something that I believe in my heart of hearts, and I've seen it to be true with millions of people. But they say that people prefer known hells to strange heavens. Think about that. People prefer known hells to strange heavens. People say to themselves, I'm going to continue to do things the way that I've always done them because that's the way that they've always been done, right? People will stay in their addiction because they're like, well, this is just who I am. No, it's not, right? Choose a different path. I chose a different path. I have an addiction. I chose a different path. I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to choose a different path. I stopped wrestling with my addiction and I said, you win. I get it. I can't do this anymore. Same thing with my business. I'm like, I get it. I can't do it. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to let somebody else play to their strengths, and I'm going to play in the lane that I'm the strongest in, which is I'm a builder. I'm an educator. I'm a speaker, and I'm going to stay in my lane. I am not a sales manager. I am a terrible sales manager. I know that through and through. So I am able to now delegate the things that I am not great at, and time has proven that I'm not great at it. I get too emotional. I'm too in my head. I'm too passionate about the business. You need someone who's less attached to the business and who can just take the time with the people and love on them and train them the way that they need to be trained. So with that being said, I just wanted to encourage every single one of you because I know that every single one of you is struggling with something. If you're not struggling with something today, you're going to struggle with something tomorrow. And it's going to require you to examine your life, and it's going to require you to go through chapters 1 through 5 of this book. And I hope that instead of you waiting years like I did to choose a different path, I hope that this podcast helps you to choose a different path if things are not working so that you can have a better life and a better future. Guys, I am Micah Smith. This was another episode of Rebuild and Rise. If you liked this show, please subscribe, and would you do me a favor? I ask you, please leave us a review because those reviews will help us reach more people and it will help us to get some more fantastic guests on the show. Thank you so much for being here. God bless. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like and subscribe. And if there's someone you know that this would help, please share this with them. If you are looking to fix and repair your credit, you can find us at www.micaabigail.com. And if you're looking for more personal stories on myself, you can find me at Fit Credit Doctor. Thanks again for joining, and God bless.